So with a mission to use music to inform, inspire, and connect people around climate change, the EcoVoice project was founded in 2022 as an outgrowth of my work at Loyola University, where I'm a frequent collaborator with the School of Environmental Sustainability. During these past several years, our little nonprofit has managed to create extensive programming as well as critical partnerships with many individuals and organizations in Chicago and beyond. But before I get into the nitty-gritty of what we've been up to, I'd like to share just a little bit of background and some context, although I'm going to move through it rather quickly in the interest of time. You've been a part of this conference now for at least a day. So we've been through exercises and other lectures that have discussed the issue of emotions and how fear and despair are not necessarily motivating, or at least they are not sustainable emotions for motivation. So just take a minute and read these headlines, kind of check in with what it feels like to digest these words. You open up the news, you have your morning coffee, boom. It's really difficult to process this information, and even harder to know what to do with the feelings that arise around these doomsday headlines. We know that our planet is on the brink of a variety of disasters, and even without the major reporting on this subject, we can see the signs around us. Words like catastrophe, crisis, and disaster are no longer hyperbole, but a reality already in many parts of the world. Scientists are doing their part, and journalists are doing their best to report the current research in a relatable way. Academic institutions and scholars are rallying to educate students via a variety of disciplines, and fortunately, more corporations are getting on board. But there's still so much work to be done, and we really do need all hands on deck at this point. As a professional musician, I've been trained in classical singing and conducting. What can I offer here? Seriously, if you had a diagram like, here are climate scientists and here's the continuum, I'm like, I'm all the way over here. No useful skills. But I do really believe that the music community has a major role to play in addressing the climate crisis. And I've really learned how this can work. So while scientists excel at research, providing the data, disseminating these facts, and engaging society is another matter. That scientists are not necessarily trained in that area, but that's my expertise. So music and the arts can play a crucial role in addressing this communication gap, especially as it relates to moving people to collective and individual action. I'd like to just pause. This is something I need to add to the next time I give this presentation. Some of this information can come across as somewhat gooey and non-scientific. But in fact, there are plenty of studies done by neurologists and music perception musicians and a wide variety of people studying the effects of music. And it is well documented time and time again how powerful music is in our brain and in our body. So it sounds gooey to some degree when you talk about it, but in fact, it is proven scientifically how music can really engage people and motivate people. And our decision-making is so tied to our emotions. So really important to point that out, and I'll be sure to include that next time around. These are just a few ways in which music is very directly related to addressing climate change and communication. I shared this earlier. If you were at the panel on music and climate activism, I actually pulled that from this presentation because I love this quote so much from Roy's book, Reds, Whites, and Blues. But hopefully you were at the earlier panel and got to hear that spoken out loud. So this is just a slide. I like to provide context when I'm describing what this is all about. So how do we get from point A to point B? It's not as if composers haven't been writing music about nature for many, many years. On this slide alone, we have a painting by Hildegard von Bingen, the 12th century mystic, who wrote a ton of poetry and a ton of music about the green earth and caring for the green earth. We also have Beethoven here, who is well known to have spent lots of time in nature as an inspiration, and including nature in especially his art song, but his even wrote an entire symphony about nature. Also, Messiaen was very inspired by birdsong especially, but other elements of nature. John Cage shows up very much in his music, and then Pauline Oliveros in her deep listening practice, also very much engaged with nature. So these are sort of, I think of as forerunners to what is now become intentional climate change music. Of course, a presentation providing context would not be complete without some of our wonderful folk singer forerunners, Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, Joan Baez, Joni Mitchell. If we had time, I'd play a little bit of Yellow Taxi, which is a hyperlink here, but no time for that. But I see these two lineages as coming together in the more recent move to create music around climate change. So I think about, well, what was happening before 1960, 1950? Well, climate change wasn't a topic in the way that it is now, even though people had been talking about industrialization, et cetera. So I like to see, well, how do we learn from those movements and build on them in this new era of climate change? Paul Winter, how many of you have heard of Paul Winter? So Paul Winter is mostly known as a new age composer and musician. I've interviewed him a few times and he isn't necessarily thrilled about that label, which I found interesting because at heart he is a jazz musician and also somewhat, I guess you could say, really responsible for what came to be known as global music in the Western world. So he spent a lot of time in South America, brought back this music in a variety of ways. His Misa Gaia, written in 1981, is an important work on the timeline of eco performance music. It includes jazz elements, it includes South American elements, and he uses sounds of animals as motives for this mass, which was premiered at St. John the Divine in New York City. Again, would love to play you an excerpt, but we're going to continue on. But I really see sort of the 80s as this opening up to create a space for more music to be written to address climate change in this way. We have John Luther Adams, Pulitzer Prize winning composer, and you mean 20 minutes, yes? Because we're going to 5:10? Yeah, 20 minutes. Oh, that's what that is. Okay. Well, I love that you have the timing here because it's really helpful. If you don't know the work of John Luther Adams, I encourage you to check it out. Pulitzer Prize winning, Grammy winning award composer, has dedicated his life to environmental sustainability issues, worked for many years in that sector, and then decided music was a better vehicle than working as an activist. And that brings us to the EcoVoice project. I like to point out that I am the poster child for how this music can work. When I was first approached 10 years ago by the Dean of the School of Environmental Sustainability at Loyola to participate in the climate conference, I thought, well, that's cool. I love interdisciplinary projects. I try to be a good citizen, sure. That first collaboration led to future collaborations and looking around at what was happening. Eventually led to me writing my dissertation on the topic and founding of a nonprofit, not to mention the numerous ways my personal life has been deeply affected. So I think about that often, and that is a result of this music, in fact. All right, I'm going to click on this, but I guess there's something fancy that has to happen for me to show you around the EcoVoice project website in order to share various projects we've been working on. The mission of the EcoVoice project is to use music to inform, inspire, informs, connects, and inspires people to act for environmentally just causes. I like to add inform, in parentheses, educate, connect, engage communities, and inspire, which is to really dig deep into people to help them connect with these issues. Is that okay? Great. I'd like to just to tell you a little bit about our work is to just show you around the website. It's not comprehensive. There are a number of things we've worked on that aren't housed here, but I think it's a good introduction to the work. This page of vision, we already went over the mission. This is just a list of the things we are seeking to do. I'll fully admit that when we founded this a little over 2 years ago, with this broad mission, we've been throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, what works, which is scary for somebody who is a conductor, a planner. We start rehearsal at this time, we do this, and this is how we produce an excellent performance. So to kind of take a leap of faith and put something out there that has not been done and do that over and over again, not to mention the hours of work it takes to keep a new nonprofit going, it's a little bit scary. Not to mention very time consuming, but it absolutely worth it. And I do it again another dozen times. But these are some of the areas we are hoping to addressing through our work. To tell you a little bit about the people, of course, there's me with my very serious headshot and my bio. I founded the organization with Thomas Alayan, who's here. He's now a board member because he is in the process of moving to the Pacific Northwest. So he's remaining a board member, but now I'm the sole director of the organization. We have a small but mighty board. One of our goals for the 2024-25 season is to build our board and our advisory board, which is in process. We also, at the core of our organization is the professional ensemble, the New Earth Ensemble, which I founded before the EcoVoice project. Not officially, it was not a corporation, but we had done a few projects before and during the pandemic, including this pandemic video, Elements, which is quite beautiful. If you have time to have a look at that later, I encourage you to do so. And then this is a nice video. I guess I'll click on it. We have a little music. This is from our first public event in summer of 2022, where we had a huge festival and performed Sarah Kirkland Snyder's Mass for the Endangered. I haven't checked sound in this room, so if it doesn't work out, we will abandon ship. And there's no sound, so we are going to, that's okay.
Hear the sound. I can hear the sound. Please go ahead, I can hear the sound.
There. Well, there's me conducting. You'll have to, it sounds amazing, by the way. Imagine. It's
It's
a really
amazing.
fantastic piece.
Beautiful.
And if you don't
Beautiful
know
music.
Mass for the Endangered, I highly recommend you listen to this beautiful work. But continuing on, we have, in just a very short period of time, created a lot of wonderful and meaningful collaborations with a variety of organizations, individual musicians, scientists. Carl Rochna is here, Lucy Jones, of course, there's Luke Wallace, collaborated with him before, other composers. And this is really just a partial list. We're, again, working on keeping our website as current as possible, but it does take a village. Just to sort of give you a quick tour through what we've done in terms of events. So I mentioned we started with our 2022 EcoVoice Festival. We had 3 days of programming. We had lectures, we had panels, we had concerts, including Mass for the Endangered. Mark Peddlety, does anybody know Mark Peddlety? He's wonderful, really a leader in eco music. He's retired now and lives out here actually from the University of Michigan, has written several really seminal books on eco music performance. Mika Tosca, a climate scientist from Chicago, really excellent lineup. Our 2023 season, I'm going to skip the festival tab here because it's somewhat included in our 2023 season, which was our first season. We kicked off with music of John Luther Adams. We had the music director from, that's okay, I'm going to go a little bit longer, sort of, well, we can have questions when we're done. And John was gracious enough to create an opening welcome for us via video. We had the music director from WFMT, which is the classical radio station in Chicago, be one of our guest speakers and reading the poetry of John Haynes, great inspiration for John Luther Adams. We had an Earth Day celebration, which brought together 3 universities and their choirs. So we had upwards of 150 students who got together to sing some of these new eco choral songs. It was very inspiring. We've kept that and repeated it this past year and will continue to do so. And then our second annual EcoVoice Festival, Luke came to visit, again, several days of programming, including a program on watersheds and water education. Fall Harvest Community Gathering, which was our fundraiser, and then our first annual winter solstice celebration, which was a great success, and we are building on that this year. So to summarize to this point, our work is really falling into 3 categories. One are these professional concerts by the New Earth Ensemble and the commissioning projects related to them, which are definitely related to traditional performance in the classical medium, but with more engaged participation throughout. The second area is community engagement through encouragement of embodied practices. So for instance, at our winter solstice observation, having a lot of community singing, whether people think they are singers or not, dialogue between audience members, crafting using traditional winter solstice crafts, tabling. This event is held in Evanston, Illinois, which is the suburb north of Chicago where Northwestern is, and a very vibrant green community there. And then the third area is outreach. And under outreach, I include these conferences that I've been attending, other projects we've been doing with organizations like the Peggy Notebart Nature Museum, the Chicago Botanic Garden, other outreach into schools. So just kind of one-off events where we can share our work. And then just a word about our 2024 season. We are in the middle of this. We just had This big project will be a collaboration between Loyola University and the EcoVoice project. We have some family foundation funding and a National Endowment for the Arts grant for 3 years of projects. The first big project is the Mass Reimagined project. This spring was the Mass Reimagined project, which included the Kyrie premiere from Dong Ryo Lee's Misa Laudato Si, which we will premiere in its entirety in the coming spring. So just to give you a little, this is Dong Ryo, my colleague at Loyola, brilliant composer, and it's based on the, oh, it's not here. The Pope's encyclical Laudato Si, which is a call to all people on the planet, Catholics, Christians, non-Catholics, non-Christians, to really step up and honor the planet. So the full premiere will be next spring. And we didn't have major programming this summer because we needed to regroup and work on some other things. So instead we have 2 interns, and I had them work on some other projects to create content. So one of our interns created a really fun summer solstice playlist, which we used for our summer solstice cleanup event. And then another composer, I wanted to tell you, he's going to be studying, he was at Juilliard, trumpet performance major, injured his lip, and now he's transferring to Berkeley, where he's studying music production. So he created these 3, I'm sorry, I don't know why that keeps happening. These 3 fun pieces based on sounds you would hear in Chicago. We had this huge cicada invasion, really. And for a month, it was just deafening. So he created these 3 fun songs based on these Chicago nature sounds. We have our fall project will be this program with the New Earth Ensemble performing. This will be the Midwest premiere of Rena Esmail's Requiem for Water. And even though it's professional musicians performing, Loyola students will participate in additional educational opportunities, working with our Hindustani vocalist, learning about water from our water scientists, and really very excited about that. And then we'll close our season with our 2nd annual winter solstice observation. Can you help me get out of the website? I'd like to tell you more about the resources we have on here, but you can go poke around yourself. There are several resource documents and environmental action guide, eco choral music, smaller pieces, eco choral music, larger works. And I'm continuing to build out the resource part of the website so that people can use it for their own programming. Just a few words about new initiatives. These are some things that are in the works that will be coming to fruition in the next year or 2. I'm especially excited about the EcoVoice song collection. I can talk your ear off about that, but suffice it to say, here's the end goal. Earth Day, Earth Month 2027 is going to have thousands and thousands of people singing from this collection all over North America. And it is going to be on social media and news organizations. And so when you see that happening, you can say, I remember when Kirsten was telling us about that. You're going to be singing. You can see the videos posted afterwards. I'm so excited. We received a National Endowment for the Arts grant, which is really hard to get. They only fund 7% of the submissions. And this was our first application. And I take that as a sign that this work is needed now and people are interested. And this is the sense I get whenever I'm reaching out to people. People are enthusiastic and excited and they are ready to engage. Jared Impichachaha Tate is an amazing up and coming composer. He and Joshua Hinton, who is also a Chickasaw member, is writing new Chickasaw texts on the environment. And we're still in conversation, the nature of it, but we know there'll be animals, there'll be a sense of spiritual content as well. And then lastly, these other three initiatives, the EcoVoice Community Choir, which we're working on building, which will be a volunteer group. Mary Hegler, who is an author and just wrote a children's book, The World is Ours to Cherish. We're going to be working together to commission an opera based on a children's opera based on her book, and then a young composers competition that we will be holding as well. Whoops. So that is the end of this presentation.